Welcome back to the Minnesota Fringe Festival 20th Anniversary Webcast interview series, and right now we will be talking about the Robin Gillette era on stage. I think the easiest way to start this off is, let's just go down the line, state your name, and what the first show that you were involved with the Fringe was.
Oh, well, I'm Brian Watson-Jones. The first show I was involved with, I don't know the name because I was pulled on stage as audience participation. The first show I knew I was going to be involved with was Towards Canterbury in 2005, I think? Something like that.
2006.
2006.
Should have done that. Why didn't you just tell us?
Let me look at my own file.
I'm Joe Bozic. The first show I did was Punk Rock Omaha in 2002. I'm pretty sure.
Awesome. Ben Sandell, and my first show was Mittens for Fat Kids in 2006.
I'm Isabel Nelson. My first Fringe show involvement was in, I think, 2005, actually, in a show called What She's Really Thinking. But then a long hiatus until 2010.
Joshua, English Scrimshaw, and my first Fringe was, it's hard to remember, 1995, it was called Till Death Do Us Part. It's a little wacky farce.
Well, let me kick things off with you, Joe.
Sure.
Because first of all, I was doing my research for this. I was seeing the shows you produced and your descriptions and everything, and I think you win the award for the most exclamation points in show titles. I
That's
think
probably accurate.
more than 50% of your shows have been an exclamation point. And one thing I want to talk to you about is that, because you started off in 2009, you did Comedy Go, which was pretty much a straight up improv.
That's right, it was 45 to 50 minutes of improvisation.
And you've done both improvisation and scripted shows, and I was wondering if you had any perspective on the shifting.
Yeah, we did that show, let's see, in 2009, that's sort of when the improv scene here in the city was kind of growing at a ridiculous kind of pace.
Yeah.
Like, Huge Theater didn't have a building yet, but that company was sort of forming and shows started popping up all around the town. And things like Improv Go-Go at the Raven Workshop was getting to be like a sellout every single week. So we knew that improvisation was going to be, it had an audience, and we knew that Fringe always had an audience. So it was sort of could these two coexist? Could these two things happen?
Do you have any grand conclusion about that?
Yeah. It was neat because we had a lot of repeat audience.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of fun to see the same people come in, and a lot of people, like a lot of the improv scene, a lot of the improv audience had never really seen like a 45-minute show, where it was just one long form set for 45 minutes, because most of the stuff that was in town was 20 minutes at most. So it was kind of neat to do that.
Well, let me pitch this over to you, Ben, because you come from a stand-up comedy background, but you've also done, not just plays, but you've also done solo stand-up shows in the Fringe more than once, and I was wondering if you could speak to, first of all, why? Because I know you perform frequently at comedy clubs. So
Why?
Obviously you're doing it because you're investing the time, money, and energy because it's a different experience than the comedy club experience that you get week after week. So what?
Well, a lot of times I don't get the chance to do full 50 minutes on stage when I'm doing comedy. I'm doing usually a half hour, and so just that by itself. But also the Fringe audience is so they're so open-minded, and so I can go on stage, and like when I did Animal Cracker Genocide, that was all stand-up comedy, but maybe 20 minutes of that ended up being in like stuff that I would do at a comedy club.
Yeah.
So there was like a half-hour material that was just for Fringe audiences that like stand-up comedy crowds wouldn't accept. At least in my head, they wouldn't accept. Like they wouldn't just being a little more experimental with jokes and.
Well, I'm gonna swing my way over to you next because again I was doing my research on you and I know it's creepy, isn't it? I was like cyber stalking you.
It's also that you keep saying you without using a name. I was researching you.
So in 2010 you did Ballad of the Pale Fisherman, which was the 11th best-selling show in the Fringe. In 2011 you did Red Resurrected, which was the 4th best-selling show in the Fringe. In 2012 you were part of Ashland, which was the best-selling show in the Fringe. That's a pretty linear progression.
So we're going to go to negative.
That's the
Next
only...
next year.
If you ever want to be in a Ferrari McSpeedy show, just let me know. I'll write something.
Jumped out at me with this too is the I don't know a diplomatic way to say this. That's unusual for dance physical theater. I love dance. I've seen a lot of dance shows over the years, but they're generally very tough sells.
We're really fortunate to live in a community that really, there's a lot of physical theater, so it's not like an alien concept to a lot of audiences around here, which is awesome. Like, that's great for us and for everybody kind of in that world. And I think that one of the great difficulties with devising is that if you don't, it's really hard. Like, I'm not a writer. It's really hard to write a good, effective story. Like, I'm so impressed with anyone who can do that. And so, like, in a way, it's. I mean, I don't want to say a shortcut, but it is like you take a structure that is archetypal that you know works in some way, and then you can mess around with it and change things around and take things out and plug things in and whatever else.
Because I mean the shows that I have is you being involved in, and if I'm missing anything, it's primarily Bard Fiction, Tempest, and Fringe Orphans, which have all been successful. And the thing that really strikes me is that they revolve around the idea of mashups, for one thing. And I kind of want to open this to the table because I think this is something we're all sort of conscious of and engage with when we deal with Fringe, is the mashups are huge to the point where I've heard them joked about as Fringe formula of taking like high culture and low culture. And at first I thought this was a uniquely Fringe phenomenon, and then over the past couple of years we've gotten like Pride and Prejudice with zombies and Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and it seems to be this huge, like, widespread cultural thing that's happening. I don't know if you have any insight into
Part of what Tedious Break Productions, one of the company that did Bard Fiction and Tempests, does is uses a different viewpoint to get people to look at Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Bard Fiction, you use Pulp Fiction, which people are familiar with, usually more than Shakespeare, depending on the crowd. You could tell by which jokes they were laughing at, which side they were coming from. But getting them to look at one of the things you're mashing up because they're more familiar with the other one, forcing people to experience the other side of culture if they don't already know both of them.
Well, part of it is the context of Fringe, right? I mean, just in terms of what you're talking about, in terms of like not having to worry about fitting in one particular box, like that's sort of the whole thing of Fringe, right? Is like it gives you that freedom and that support. I mean, particularly I think here with this Fringe, like the support both audience-wise and otherwise to just like fucking. Try something new and see what happens.
Well, and all around the table, everybody's been talking about the experiments they did and the shock when they succeeded. And we felt the same thing with Bard Fiction. We did a Shakespeare mix-up with a modern film, and people attended and enjoyed it, which was weird.
And told other people to attend.
And that is sort of the point of Fringe, of experimenting, trying these different things.
Would you say that you use the Fringe to experiment, or you use the Fringe to build a smash?
Experiment.
Yeah, experiment.
Yeah.
Experiment in a way that will be a smash.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the time to do, I think, kind of what you want. I mean, I think you've got to find a way to get an audience that first time, and sometimes that involves more of a gimmick. Hardy Boys. But I don't think that's a bad thing either. But I think once the audiences seem to trust you if they've seen one show they like, and then from there you can go, I'm going to do one where we just fall down for 50 minutes. You know what I mean? Because I want to do it. Not that it's anything wrong with the show, but like something that you don't immediately go, I don't see the marketing hook there, but you can go, let's try it.
All right. Well, one last question I'd like to throw out to the table. Super geeky alternative history thought experiment. You're braced for this. Minnesota Fringe had never existed. You never heard about it. You've never interacted with it. What would your life/career have changed, not have changed, based on that different timeline?
Apes would control the planet.
Obviously.
Steampunk jetpacks.
Yes.
Fringe is where I found just my confidence to be both somebody who could hold an audience's attention for 45 minutes and somebody who could write dialogue. I would have floundered for a lot longer and just, I don't know, I might have quit altogether by this point if it wasn't for Fringe. So that's my nugget.
I moved to this state just in time to volunteer for the 2003 Fringe. I met my first in-state girlfriend there, so I wouldn't have ever dated her. I wouldn't have half the friends I have right now because I knew them from doing Fringe stuff, and they were forced to like me because of doing Fringe stuff. I'd probably still do shows, but I wouldn't be writing nearly as much, and I would have never produced anything.
Yeah, I think for me it would be, we probably would have still put up some shows here and there, but they'd be much more sketch comedy related and nothing like a, hey, here's a 50-minute narrative or anything like that. So, yeah. Take that or leave it.
I agree. It just gives you a chance to figure out what you want to do theatrically to have an audience. I think it just would have been a much longer struggle to find an audience, and you need that audience, that interaction. You need some audiences to hate your guts, and a place to come back, because it's not, you get to buy your way back in, even if they hate you the second time. So other places, they hate you the first time, and you might learn from it, but you don't sell any tickets, and you can't come back because it's a cut somewhere or something. They don't want you back. The Fringe, you can suck a lot for a while and really learn, and just keep masochistically buying your way back in.
Way to market your shows.
Yes! But now I've found that voice.
Yeah, I don't know that ballad would even have been made by now. You know what I mean? Like, both just because of the logistics and the difficulty of like figuring out space and funding and like all that sort of thing, but also the accountability. Like when my ball got drawn at Fringe in 2010, I was like, oh shit. Like, because it means you have to do it. Like, you act like, okay, put your money where your mouth is and build the show. And so, and that kick in the pants has been like the best thing that could happen for every year, because it's so easy. It's terrifying. It's terrifying to make theater. We all like, we all know this. Like to write something or build something or whatever and put it on stage in front of people, that's terrifying. And so having having the date and like, okay, here's your venue, here are your times. Like, hope you have something to show.
Make
like,
something.
Yeah, absolutely. Is really, I think certainly for me, is a really, really important, good kick in the pants.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, on that note, I think thank you for joining us. I think that's our webcast, and I think that that's our series. And I hope we'll all see you on the Fringe.